Go slideshow from the beginning. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Think with a Drink. This is the weekly webinar series brought to you by the Aries Foundation. And we got a fun one for you tonight, what we are calling It Ain't Easy Getting Green. Like we're taking a little what's that riff on Kermit there, right? Because this is Ain't Easy Being Green.
Right. Yep.
So this is It Ain't Easy Getting Green. It is a pre-St. Patty's Day special because tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day. We'll touch on that, why it's magic here in Boston. But if you can see Craig on the screen, I don't know if you can, but he's literally in a bar somewhere in Ireland, I believe, is what his deal is there. He's got his tam on, his that wonderful little hat there, and he's all ready to go, unlike the leprechauns on the screen. All right, so we're going to get into this, what this all means with everything. Real quick though, just so everybody knows, we are recording this. We record them, we share them, YouTube, the website. So just know that just the microphones are muted. The cameras you don't have to worry about. There is a chat box if you do have questions as we go along with this. And yes, my co-pilot's sitting in the Irish pub right now. He's here to join me and keep me on track and answer any questions that come up.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of those pilots for today, my name is Tom Alessi. I'm the president of the Aries Foundation. I have been in financial services I'm in my 24th year. I'm an investment advisor. That means that I act as a fiduciary whenever I'm giving guidance or advice to any of my clients. I want to bring what would you be? Craig O. Richardson? Is that what you would be?
Whatever you want to call me. As long as you got a pot of gold, I don't care what you call me.
Oh, there you go. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Craig Richardson, Vice President of the Aries Foundation. I've been doing financial services a little over 19 years now, and I specialize in working with families and individuals to help them define their financial goals and have a better relationship with their money.
And Craig will be chiming in from his bar stool, wherever that is on the universe there. And just so we told you, Think with a Drink is brought to you by the Aries Foundation for Financial Education. We are a nonprofit. We are dedicated entirely to the mission of trying to help everyone have a better relationship with their money. You can visit us at ariesfoundation.org and just see some of the different things we do, some of the different workshops, like we said, some of the different YouTube videos and what we have upcoming, because our whole mission is trying to make everyone have a better relationship with their money, because just like every other personal relationship that you have, there are behaviors and triggers that cause us to act, well, Craig and I like to say, irrationally sometimes when we're handling our money and our finances. And sometimes it just helps to have someone to voice that again, someone to talk to, right, Craig? Somebody just to bring that up and say, hey, I just could use a little help or guidance here.
Voice of reason every once in a while, right?
There we go. Voice of reason. That little thing. What did you see? Now we're into the kinks here with that. Like the little man in my head. What is that? Paranoia, the destroyer. Saying I'm dating myself with that one.
Yeah, definitely dating yourself.
I'm a big Kinks fan. I always like the Kinks. Disclosures. There's a lot of words on the screen. I'm not going to read them. So just know that, we're a nonprofit. We do this for educational and informational purposes only. All we ever ask, since we share this stuff on a YouTube channel, we share it with organizations, we share it on our website, is that if you're going to share it, you do the same. You just do it in an educational manner. Just know that the Aries Foundation, myself, Craig, the rest of the team, we recommend that if you ever have a question that is of a tax, legal, or financial nature, that you seek out the help of a professional. Okay, so here's the deal with Think with a Drink. We do this we try to make this educational, we try to make it relaxing, we try to make it casual, because a lot of these topics tend to be a little intimidating for folks, a little overwhelming. And here's the thing. So I am drinking this evening. This is Beckenridge Christmas Ale. So, Craig was very hopped up on our, having this holiday theme going through all of our ones, because we had one for something, and then it was President's Day, and then it was Valentine's Day, and then it was Groundhog Day, and all sorts of stuff was going on. And unfortunately, I didn't have anything other than this. I didn't have any green beer in my wheelhouse. And I only had the holiday, but I figured it was a holiday, right? Christmas ale, but it's a winter mix, right? So, very dark, very heavy, roasted malts and caramels, comes in at about 7.1%. So it's got a little bite to it. And if you're trying to pair, we always like to do this, a little bit of food pairing, think those holiday meals, Greg, like a ham, like a roast beef type of meal thing. And of course, desserts. With the roasted malts and caramels and chocolate notes, anything with chocolate in it is going to go. What are you drinking?
I am a little more festive than you are. I have a Murphy's. Can you see that? Murphy's Stout.
Ah, there we go. See, I knew one of us would come through with the Irish part in that. So
yeah, that's actually got chocolate malt in it, but it's only 4% by volume, which is kind of interesting.
Well, that's the stouts, right? A lot of those stouts don't have like Guinness is the same. Guinness is probably 3.8 or 4.2. Guinness doesn't have a lot of alcohol content either.
I was going to do Guinness, but that was too obvious.
Yeah. Well, the Mercy.
Like anything else besides Guinness, so I said, "Oh, Murphy, I like that. That's a nice Irish name."
Cheers for the St. Paddy's Day. Oh, that's good. I like that. Okay, let's get to our agenda. We can all be Irish for a day, at least here in Boston. That is the mantra. That is the way. We're going to segue right into that, right? We're going to talk about socially responsible because we're getting green, right? So the first part of this is going to be all dedicated to trying to be green with our investment philosophy, our investment choices, and it breaks down between socially responsible, known as SRI, and ESG, which stands for environmental, social, and governance, breaking down companies in terms of how they fit on that scale, why they're not necessarily the same thing, how they're different, why they're different, and how this sort of all plays out. Some different fund choices to look at, some very large ones out there that follow these guidelines. And then the second part will be about, we're trying to get green, so that's building wealth, right? That's the other side to this equation. All right, we're going to have a little fun with you here. Like I said, everybody is Irish for a day in Boston. So here we are in Boston, and those are the four teams dressed as leprechauns, right? So each one of the four Boston teams. But understand, in Boston, tomorrow, the 17th every year is a holiday. It is called Evacuation Day in the city of Boston, and it is really intended so that the state workers in the city of Boston and the couple of the surrounding cities don't have to go to work on St. Patrick's Day. Now we're going to have a little fun with you here as we're going to kick this up. You ready, Greg?
I'm ready.
Here we go. Can you hear that? So that's shipping up to Boston, the Dropkick Murphys. They're somewhere playing around here probably this weekend because of St. Patrick's Day. So in the city of Boston, this is literally everybody becomes Irish for the weekend, or at least until the St. Paddy's Day parade goes off, which I think is on Sunday this year.
That was wicked awesome.
Wicked awesome. Yeah, that's like,
awesome.
What is that with Lenny Clark with the gambling thing where he does that thing. Come in, he's gonna have a wicked parlay. I hate him when they say that. All right, so moving on and getting a little serious here. All right, socially responsible investing what does that really mean when we break this down, right? So there's sort of a balance here when we're talking about socially responsible investing. Now, it's been around for a long time, but here's the part of that is everybody's sort of own view and version is different, right? So what might be socially responsible to you may not be socially responsible to me. Some people are, totally in view with nature and the whole, I don't want fossil fuels and used in any way, shape, or form. I'm gonna either ride my bike or I'm gonna get an EV type of thing. I'm not gonna use fossil fuels in any way. Others might be, well, no, I understand we still need fossil fuels. I'm okay with having those. But that's what I mean. So it's very hard to define this for one, that everybody falls under the same umbrella.
Right, because you're talking about your value system.
Exactly. And that's what it all is about. It's about investing based on your values and what you see. And really, when we break that down, socially responsible investing, otherwise referred to as sustainable investing, again, falls under this SRI acronym, socially responsible investing, really does just that. That puts a premium on the positive social change, trying to consider both sides of this. Like, I'm only going to be putting my money or my investments in those causes, those companies that I am comfortable with, but I'm also trying to get some financial return here, right? Like, it's all not just going to the good. I want the good to have some return here on the side of that. But really, financial returns are really secondary to the mission of I'm investing with my moral, like you said, values are in place there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like this can get a little complicated, right?
Can get very complicated. Now, this is where we bring in, the ESG component. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. And it's really looking at a company as a whole and where they fall with each of these in the parameters of, how are you as a company, the corporate structure, dealing with environmental issues? How are you dealing with social issues? And how are you handling things from a governance standpoint, i.e., a diversified board, a diversified management team, all of that, a diversified workforce? How is all of that coming together under one umbrella? And are you moving in the right direction for that?
So in ESG, is there a regulatory authority that actually designates a company as being an ESG investment? And if they do, they give them a scoring based on that?
That's what's coming. That's where we're at. And that's what part of the whole issue is that you've sort of got this, well, hey, here are the parameters. Are you falling under this? And, we'll talk about it in a couple slides about this whole, well, actually, we won't. I didn't put it in there because there is this whole backlash to the industry about it. See, one of the issues is, well, okay, you might, if I look at you from a domestic portfolio, your corporation might be, scale very, very high. You might be in the, if you're really using like your conversation, having a number, right, in the high 80s or 90s, in terms of trying to grade off 100. But then you might be have a subset or a sister corporation that's operating in some third world country that is just miserable and in like the 20s or the 30s. Like, how do I balance that on the scale of where I'm investing with you? But your whole parent umbrella has this other corporation that is, not doing up to that standard or code.
So I'm doing everything I should in the United States to hit that code. Not telling anybody I'm dumping all my waste in Haiti. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Something similar to that, or I'm taking advantage of some rules or some, work thing that goes on in another country. That's all right. It's standard operating procedure there, but that it still goes against all of the social and governance rules that I should be following. So there's been some of that you're getting. What if you really start to look at this stuff, you're getting a lot of backlash, specifically from the right on this about that some of these companies that are created, like you said, who's creating the scale? Who's creating this margin? Who's making this stuff up? And, are they trying to sort of push forward their own agenda by creating these markers or these measures to be put in place?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there probably are some delineating factors as far as, especially with the global warming going on. Does the company create a carbon footprint, and what's the size of that footprint, right?
Right.
So there are some metrics that could probably do some of the social responsibility investing matrix on. As far as a choice of should I save the whales or should I, frack oil? I mean, that's once again comes down to your value set.
Right.
I think it's a matter of, if you're looking at pure environmental impact, that's probably a little bit easier to measure those type of
Yeah, that's part of it, right? That can be one piece of it. But then we get into the social and the governance part. Then it becomes like, well, now wait a minute. Now you're trying to control what my board looks like, or who I'm hiring, or how that all looks, and how is that, I'm now being penalized for operating my company, my business the way I want to or how I want to, because you're telling me I need to follow some other set of guidelines.
Yeah, but you know what? All legislation is basically built around a moral code. Everything you do is based to push you, whether you're married or single,
Right.
and for tax deductions. You get to, write off interest on a house. Why would you do that when you don't get to write it off on other items that you buy? So you're always trying to push. There's always a moral agenda behind everything that gets legislated. So
Correct. And then one of the biggest knocks that come is this whole thing about, does a do good or moral compass investment actually make money, right? Where does that happen? And what they have found is SRI, the socially responsible, over time, yes. What they're looking at now is those companies that fall high on the ESG scale. When you look at them out over time, they definitely perform at or better than traditional investing. It just makes sense. Their company is operating, like you said, they're operating in a way that's ethical and moral and moving forward. So this is something that on a long-term holding and a long-term investment is probably going to merit out or win out, if you will.
Okay.
For a long period of time, the socially responsible stuff, it's funny because there are some studies out there where they talk about, well, hey, this highly rated ESG or socially responsible fund didn't really perform all that much better than that lower rated socially responsible or ESG fund. One's an 80, one's a 20. Gee, the returns were fairly close. Okay. But like Craig, like you were just were expounding on and saying that, well, it's my moral compass. If I want to invest in the one that's got 80, I'm okay with that. If I'm the one that's 20, I'm okay. It's not like, whoa, there's this huge diverse swing in terms of it, but I can feel better about where I'm putting my money.
Right. And I think it depends on the type of, what you're talking about as far as where people, one, are you investing money into a particular stock or company or startup, that kind of thing. And the second thing is, are they producing something? And are people buying from them or, because of their moral code or because of the product that they're selling? So you've got a lot of dynamics that are going into
Right.
that.
Right. But, like I said, as now we start to see a much longer history of this,
Yep.
What you're starting to see is that it's not only is SRI socially responsible, good for your soul,
Yep.
it actually works out in the wallet too. It actually works out in your investing side. So I mean,
because 10 years ago when these things started coming out, they were dragging behind most other investments, and you're doing it at a little bit of a cost. But like you said, now they're kind of catching up, but I also think the social conscious is catching up. So
yeah, and that's part of it. And now we're going to go through some of those. And these are like 7, not to say these are the only 7, there's a lot of them out there, but these are, some of the larger funds that are available for those who just might want to dip their toes in. The Parnassus, I believe I said that correctly. Core equity, this has been around for a long time. This has been around for a long, long time. It's got $25 billion in it. So it is a large fund, right? It invests in nothing but large US companies, but they've got a core strategy that they measure up against ESG criteria. So, if you're looking for, I'm looking for, something I want to put long-term holding, large cap, this is a fund for you. This one works.
And you can break this open and see what companies are actually inside that as well.
Yeah, because you have the holdings inside there, what they are. Absolutely. Probably the largest ETF in the universe, right, is this one, the iShares. Now that's the Morgan Stanley with the US. So this is a world fund basically. And this one tells you, hey, as it says, the ESG aware, right? That there's a lot of exposure here in terms of this. But specifically, there's like more than 300 companies that are just in the US inside this fund that are all focused in the socially responsible ESG vein. So certainly there. The next two, Vanguard, clearly that's a known name out there in the universe for everybody. It's a much broader, just really more of a broad indexed ETF. The Alliance Bernstein, that's the AB. This is a smaller one. It's probably, I think, about 2 billion inside that fund. Thematic, it is actively managed. This is probably the largest actively managed socially responsible ESG fund out there. This one has if you're looking for somebody that's doing active management to it, this is probably the one that's right for you.
It's not just all algorithms, is what you're saying?
Correct. They're actually going in and reviewing the companies, making sure they're staying where they are. For somebody who's in that I don't want anything to do with any type of fossil fuel, any of that stuff, right? I want clean energy. I want to focus on the people who are dealing with solar, we're doing EV and all of that. The iShares, this is probably the largest ETF to focus on with that, right? This is our complete clean energy. Now, a little bit opposite of that, which this one I kind of like. I sort of found this one. I thought this one was kind of cool. This is the S&P 500 without the fossil fuel companies. So, there's 15 of them that are in there, the, Exxon Mobil, et cetera. They take those 15 fossil fuel companies out of the S&P 500 and give you everybody else, essentially, in terms of that.
So with these companies, saying they're all ESG friendly, does that mean that everything they're holding is ESG friendly, or is it just a portion? Like, do they have some companies that may not fall under that guise?
So in the most case, they try to hold to the parameters of companies that are following, as you asked, the guidelines that are out there in the ESG or SRI world.
Okay.
Right. So that's the idea here. Well, except for that one, the spider one I just gave you, it's the rest of the S&P 500 without fossil fuel. So this is just for somebody who says, I don't want to have anything to do with the company oil or any of those companies. That's what's coming out.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it was like some funds where it says it's supposed to be a large cap and you open it up and there's some mid cap funds in there.
Well, they're all, that's always going to happen, right? So to just understand in the world of caps that you're going to have those, there are companies that are going to straddle and fall. And yes, technically the manager, if it goes from a mid cap to a large cap, is supposed to get rid of it. But, they have some play there where it's a good fund. I don't want to get rid of this company because it's doing well. And I like it just because it grew up and now became, instead of a mid cap, it's a large cap. Well, it's because it's done so well and it's gained in size. That's why I don't want to get rid of it. I don't want to sell it out of my portfolio. So I'll continue to hold it. You do get that. But yes, if they start to really, sway where the bulk of the positions go from mid cap to large cap, that's the style drift, and that happens as well. It happens when stuff goes bad. It happens when the market turns like it's doing. You'll see style drift, and style drift. This just means, like Craig said, there was supposed to be a large cap growth fund, say, or a large cap value fund, and now they've drifted. They're a value, they're a core fund instead. That's the manager, trying to keep themselves in position and keep making money, but they've style drifted off to what their original mission was.
That's why I wasn't sure if some of these social responsible funds, if when they see a dip in the market and trying to prop up the fund, if they would drift as well off of ESG.
So that's the worry. That's the danger in this whole thing, because nobody knows. The idea is they're not supposed to, but you never know that it might happen, right? Because that's just the nature of what happens with funds when you're dealing with funds. Like you said, it's not a single company. I can look at the single company and see what they're doing.
Right.
But now I've got, 300 or 500 or 1,000 funds, companies in here. How am I supposed to go through that?
How am I supposed to remeasure the ESG awareness score, right?
And then the last one, the smallest, 700 million, but it's probably the oldest, like even beyond Calvert, the socially responsible fund. This thing's been around since 1992.
Why is it 1919 then?
I don't know why it's 1919. I didn't look up the reason behind the name.
It's been over here 100 years. That's great.
Yeah, no, it was founded in 1992. One of the earliest funds out there with it, and it's a balanced fund, which means it's also holding bonds as well as cash. And the bonds are against companies that are in the scale. So if you're somebody who's looking for not as much risk, say, as some of these other positions, because they're all in equities being stocks, this one holds both stocks and bonds, which are fixed assets, which gives you more of a moderate or a little bit less risk position than some of these others. And like I said, it's been around for a long time. So it's not like a fly-by-night thing. This is what they do.
Okay. Well, that's some great choices.
Yeah, no. And if you ever have questions on any of this stuff about your portfolio, or if you're somebody who's thinking about that and looking and saying, gee, I never really thought about the idea of being green in my portfolio because I never really looked at the positions that were available, whether it's inside your retirement plan, inside the assets that you're currently holding in your IRA or an outside account, that's what we can help you with. You can shoot that QR code. It's right on the screen. Just take a snapshot of that. It'll open up our schedule. Happy to have a conversation and see how we can help you. See, I'd love to have the Dropkick Murphys kick in again about how we can help you be green with your investing. All right. So now the other side of being green, building wealth, which is ways to get more green, Craig, right? We everybody wants more green.
Mm-hmm. Green is good.
The first one is you got to create a plan. There really is no other way to do this. I don't care where you Google or what you look at. Anything that comes up is going to tell you got to have a strategy, right, Greg? You got to have something that's saying this is how I'm going to get wherever I'm trying to get to, whatever I'm trying to acquire, grow, build, whatever it is, I got to have a plan to start.
Yeah, because having real wealth isn't about how much you make, it's about how much you keep.
Yes.
And if you don't have a plan, it's hard to keep that in that money. So
yeah, and we'll talk about that. We'll go through that in a second with that. But absolutely, that is the case, right? So you got to have a plan. There's the first thing. Put a plan in place, right? The second one, we just talked about investing and whether or not you want to be green with your investing or you just, there's what you're seeing now, Craig, honestly, is in the last year or so, an onslaught of almost anti-ESG is what I will call them.
Really?
Funds. Oh, yeah. So this is like, back in the day, God bless, and we're going back now, 20 plus years ago. You used to have the SIN fund.
Yeah.
So this was, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, gambling. This all this fund invested in. That's all, because this was, okay, you can call it, that's what I think they called it. I actually called it the SIN fund at one point, but I think it was the fund at one point. But the whole idea here is, really with investing, when we're talking about trying to build wealth, this is trying to find, like Craig talked about, that whatever your values, whatever your moral code is, and then what your risk is to go along with that. Because it's one thing to say, hey, I want to invest, but it's another to say, I'm willing to risk this amount or this portion of my money in order to try to obtain that return.
Mhm.
Ways to increase your wealth.
Wow, you moved the slide while drinking. I am impressed.
Don't be that, you know, in terms of that. So, all right, the first one when we talk about this, there is no more practical, steady way to increase your wealth than to have automatic investment, automatic savings, an auto plan involved, right, Craig, in terms of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the turtle in a hare here. You know, slow and steady wins the race every time. You know, if you have a habit or a pattern or something that can help you achieve that over a longer period of time, you stick to it, and it grows painlessly.
Absolutely. And so automating whatever you're doing, that's why the 401k, the corporate retirement plan is a huge wealth building tool because it's coming direct from your paycheck. It's something that's going in no matter what you do, as long as you're still employed and you're contributing to the plan, it's happening without you thinking about it, without you doing it, and you're acquiring and building wealth by doing that. If you can take that and move it into everything else that you're doing with your money, this is where you're going to be so much more successful.
Yeah,
And
it's also less stressful because you don't have to think about it as often. It's kind of happening on its own. You set up the mechanism, and then they just making sure it keeps working.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about that with God bless what they call those things. Christmas clubs, right? That's what they call those stupid savings accounts, right? But that was all it was like my mom. Like that was what my mom would do. Like you'd have a Christmas club account there would be money that would throw into it and then it'd come to the end of the year, like she would have this money to spend for Christmas. That's the whole concept.
Mm-hmm.
If you do that with your money, you do that with your retirement, you do that with your savings, you do with you're going to have more money at the end of the year than you did to start. The second thing you need to do with it is you got to protect it, right? And having stuff, I don't care what your stuff is, you got to have protection for that stuff. You got a home, you need home insurance. You got a car, you need car insurance. You got yourself, you're earning money, you need disability, you need life insurance. You got to protect the stuff. You got to have, and for investments, that means downside risk protection.
Oh, and don't forget health insurance. That's a big one.
Oh yeah, and health insurance, right? So all of the things that go along, but you got to have those pieces in place because that's one of the biggest things that can just pull the rug out. What is that game with the tower? Jenga? Is that what that's called?
Yeah, Jenga, right.
Jenga, right? Like it's like you're pulling the little thing out of the Jenga tower, and then all your investment strategies, all the money that you have topples if one of those things happens and goes wrong with you. So go ahead.
Oh, so this is one of those things though that people go, well, yeah, the insurance people always want you to buy more insurance, right? But I'm spending money and what am I getting back for it? Unfortunately, that's a wrong attitude to have. You know, if you have assets, it makes sense to protect them.
Yeah, you got to protect them, and that's the thing. And the other side, like we talked about, if we're talking about investments, well, the protection is downside risk. How much downside risk have you built into your portfolio? Have you crash tested your portfolio? Right? That's something that Craig and I do for clients where we crash test the portfolio. Let's see what happens if gold tanks, if gold goes up, if the treasuries rise, if this happens, if that happens. Unfortunately, we haven't built one yet for the pandemic. God bless. That's probably coming though, and that we can thread it in. But that's what you can do for a portfolio.
Well, that's when we put on our helmets and run into cement walls. Is that what you're saying?
No, we just take your new truck and we run it into a wall.
Oh, no.
And then lastly, Craig mentioned this, taxes, right? Understanding what you're paying in taxes, understanding that lowering your tax base, making sure that you're not paying more in taxes than you'd absolutely need to or have to is a way to increase your wealth.
Yeah, I was working with a client recently in the same conversation. First thing you want to talk about is, well, how much can I get for a return on my investments? I said, well, let's talk about how much you're giving back in taxes and see if we can keep that first.
Right. It's how much can we set aside that's yours that you don't have to give to the government, which is legally and ethically allowed to do.
Right, it's tax avoidance. It's not tax evasion.
Yes.
There's a line there.
There is it's what the code is for and being able to follow that, but that'll help you as well. Right. And so then the other way is that if you're setting goals, we talk about this, and he already did, Craig, did the wicked smart thing, right? And wicked awesome in terms of, we're here in Boston, we're having fun with you. It's St. Patty's Day after all. Cheers.
Cheers.
But you got to set goals. Got to have goals for yourself. You got to know what you're trying to achieve. Those goals need to be smart. They need to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely, because that is the only way that you're going to get to wherever you're trying to get to. Just saying, I want to save money, or I want to put money aside, or I want to have money for this isn't going to work. You need to have the plan. You need to have the goal. You need to have a way you're going to achieve those goals.
Yeah. And your smart plan should have a purpose. Right?
Yes.
Because sometimes you get on track with something because you're motivated, because we just told you should do something and you go, oh yeah, I should do that. And then a week later, you don't do it anymore because you haven't found the purpose for why you're doing it.
Right. Don't keep yourself motivated. You don't keep yourself going in terms of it. So just understand that goals are, very, very important, especially along the way as you're trying to get, for some of you, you might be listening, retirement may be another lifetime away. If you're 30, 35 years old, God bless, it's another lifetime away. So it's very hard to stay on track with that if you don't have measurable steps to get you there and little ways to make sure I'm staying on the path that I wanted to be on for myself.
Right. Like you said, it has to be relevant. That's your R in the smart.
Yes. All right. So getting or going green, right? So the whole idea here is it's investing is one of those things that you need to be thinking about, and certainly from this whole universe now of I can find something that fits my value, my moral code, what I am all about, and I can invest with that, towards that, in a way that makes me feel good. And oh, by the way, as we discussed, I'm actually doing okay and making money at the same time, because that's what I want my investments to do. Right. Nothing wrong with that.
So it's okay to invest in blood diamonds if it's long as within your moral code.
Okay, no, we didn't go there. That's completely opposite now. You're beyond the sin, like you're way out. You're in the dark. Like you're you're on the dark side with that. Like you're in the deep dark black universe in terms of dealing with the that's the dark side of things. No. We're talking about just finding that what do you want, your values, and how do you want that to be. And does that line up for what you're trying to get to?
Right. So
and that's what
you feel good about it.
Yes.
Because you got there the way you wanted to.
Right. And so that's what we try to do. That's the conversations we have with everyone. These are the conversations we have all the time. These are what we're trying to help people sort of figure out. Where are you trying to get to? What are you trying to do? How are you going to make that happen? And how are you doing it in such a way that Craig says is you're actually feeling good about it and you're okay. Like there isn't that stigma like, whoa, I'm making money, but the company's evil and I'm making it off. No. That's not the whole point. And so, like we said, you can shoot the QR code on the screen for anybody watching this on the recording. It'll open up our calendar, schedule a time. We're happy to have a conversation with you, just see how we can help you out. To keep with the Think with a Drink theme going, what's on tap? So next week, we are doing 3 ways to manage your day-to-day expenses. Because let's face it, everything is expensive. Money is tight. It costs more to buy a dozen eggs than it does a gallon of gas. How are you going to get through your day-to-day and everything that you're doing with your household spending?
I'll just observe this one.
Yeah. On the 30th, we're going to do, because April is financial wellness, financial literacy month. So we're a little play on words there. We're doing a march into financial wellness and an overview of what is financial wellness. What does it mean to me? How do I achieve it? How do I obtain it? 4-6, we're going to, because it is financial wellness month, we're going back to, our basics, saving versus spending. And on the 13th, we're going to do 5 questions for investing in a down or volatile market. Craig and I do a lot of these workshops. We do a lot of events, and we have questions that get asked to us. And these are sort of the top 5. Hey, what should I be doing now type of thing? Or how should I be addressing this? How should I be handling it? So that's what we're going to do on the 13th. If you have any questions, you can go right to the website. It's ariesfoundation.org. There's a contact us on there. You can shoot us an email. It's info@ariesfoundation.org. But easiest thing to do, that QR code, shoot the QR code. It'll open up our calendar, and we're happy to have a conversation with you. Craig, any questions for us?
Yeah, so you're going to walk us out with Dropkick Murphy or what?
Yeah, no, I can't. I don't know how to do that. See, look, you said that. Look at it in terms of going there. I am
later in post-production.
Yes. I am going to say, everybody have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day from all of us here in Boston.